the meeting to order. And the recording has started. Thank you so much, everybody. So we have the planning board agenda. I think all the planning board members would have it. The first order of business is the shoreland application from Susan. Is it Poliachek? Is it close?
Pretty good. Poliachek.
Poliachek. Okay. Thank you very much. And I apologize for not
It's
doing
not
it
a problem.
correctly. Yeah, okay. And so thanks for attending tonight. We'll probably have a few questions for you. Just so, have you been through this process before?
No.
Typically, what ends up happening, we just want to give you a quick kind of overview. So we, the planning board, would look at your application. We would determine if it's complete or if there's a need for more information. Then we can, if it is determined complete, we can then go through our process, which would include at some point something called the findings of fact. And if we go all through that, then the permit would be, if approved, then the permit would be issued to you. But I just wanted you to know that there's a process to the whole evening. So something to expect, okay?
Okay. Is the finding of fact something that happens during the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's very process oriented in that regard. And
Okay.
It allows us to stay on course and legal with things so that the determination, whatever it is we determine, we can say, we point to this and say, this was met or this was not met or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And if anybody else has anything to add to that, please feel free. I just want to make sure you had an idea. Okay. So you're proposing to add a screened porch and a roof to an existing deck. This apparently is a conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. This is at 75 Lakeshore Drive on Long Pond, map 24, lot 19. Okay. So first, thank you for completing the application and filling in. I'm not seeing any blanks quite yet, so that's a good start.
Good.
It doesn't always happen that way.
Okay.
The application looks quite complete to me, Peter.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? I'm not seeing any missing. The site plan on graph paper. Just out of interest, did that work well for you to have graph paper to utilize to help demonstrate distances and things?
It was helpful, yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay. Okay. So I'm just looking at the diagram. Does anybody have any questions? I don't want to talk over people if you have any burning questions. So,
I don't have any questions. It looks pretty straightforward. They're just adding on, roofing, covering the porch and screening it in, and the footprint's the same, the height stays the same, and,
yep.
Yeah, the height's going to be, if I did the math correctly, 24.5 feet tall from, ground level closest to the lake. So that's, easily within the limit of the ordinance. So that's not an issue. And as Peter said, there's no increase in the footprint. And it's over 100 feet away from the lake anyway. Over 120 feet actually. And yeah, I don't see much. The only issue I think that we'll need to resolve as we go through the findings of fact will probably be the stormwater runoff from the new roof.
Yep. And there's no excavation taking place, right? It's just simply. Um, nice. Oh, cool. So I'm looking at the photograph, which has got, it looks like a penned in or
Yes,
something to help demonstrate and visualize what it will look like.
yes.
Very nice. Okay, that helps too. Okay, all right. Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant at this
No.
time? I mean, some of the things that we sometimes ask ourselves or ask the applicant have been addressed as far as I can tell. Height of the application, you know, I'm sorry, height of the roof, other things that we sometimes have to ask people, it's already been addressed. So I don't have any other questions. So I'm ready to move forward if everybody else is. Okay, so looking ahead, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to get a findings of fact document, and we will go through that. I think at this next stage. I'm just typing as we go along here, just a second. Okay. Planning board members, are we prepared to go to the findings of fact document?
Yes.
Okay, super. Let's go there. Okay.
Just to let you guys know, Sarah lost audio, so she's going to remove herself and rejoin. So she might have something once she comes back.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Susan, what I am doing is just filling out some administrative things like your name and address, and we will get our other planning board member back shortly. So just
Okay.
doing those things as we go along.
I am not in a hurry.
Is this, I'm just curious, is that lot, is your lot, it looks fairly, I don't know if flat's the right word, but not steeply sloped or anything like that. It looks very gentle, if anything.
It's a walk downhill to the lake, but it's a pretty gentle walk. Yes, I would say. I don't know what the elevation is from the water.
That's okay. Yeah. It's just up from the water. Right?
Sure.
Just up a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's up. There is one little bit of a steep place from the leach field when that was put in, you know, there's a sort of a little hump to walk up, but it's no big deal.
Okay. 2419. Okay, so where I am. So Sarah is back. Hi, it says it's connecting audio. Hi, Sarah, are you with us? Possibly. Okay, so we have the applicant, Susan Poliachik.
Poliachik.
Poliachik. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm not emphasizing the right syllable. Okay.
That's right.
Address is at 75 Lakeshore Drive, tax map 24, lot 19. The applicants on this date applied for a shoreline permit for adding a screen porch and roof to existing deck. Today's date is the 15th of July. Okay. So I've got findings of the administrative stuff at the top, section 1 filled out. 2, conclusions of law based upon the application materials, testimony, statements, evidence, documents, and other materials submitted to it, and the above findings of fact, the Belgrade Planning Board finds that the project is or is not permitted. And so this is where we will vote, but we'll go through the findings of fact first. Okay. And this is relative to section 14 of our ordinance, table 1, and further makes conclusions based on the applicable provisions in section 16D of the ordinance. Okay, so number 1, that this proposed activity will maintain safe and healthful conditions. By a vote, the board found this standard was met based on, and our standard language that we use on this, unless otherwise told, is based on submission of materials and the public record. So this is where we would vote on each of these. So board members, for safe and healthful conditions, that this was met. So George,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and I vote in favor. So that's 5 in favor, none opposed. So number 2, will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. By a vote, the board found this standard was met based on the submission materials in the public record. So George,
Yes, with the stormwater condition.
shall I put some language in here to say something about that? So to say, based on the submission of materials in public record, comma, and adherence to the stormwater condition?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Can you explain that to me, please?
Yes.
You want me to try, Peter, or what you're doing
Go
now?
for it. Sure.
So we have a standard condition of approval that requires whenever additional roof area or a new roof is being added, or there's an expansion in footprint, to adhere to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection stormwater management practices. And this is all about trying to keep the stormwater from running to the lake and carrying phosphorus with it.
Right.
Once you get your permit, with that will come a link to a DEP document that lays out the different options. But one of the probably the most cost effective and easiest is to, at the drip edge of the roof line, on the edge of the roof line, is to install a crushed rock or gravel drip edge infiltration trench, and it just goes along the perimeter of where the downslope side of the roof, not the entire perimeter of the house, but it only applies to the new portion, the portion that you're requesting approval, because we have no jurisdiction over your existing structure.
Got it. That already exists, actually. There is a gravel trench all the way across. If you look at the picture of the house with the pen drawing in it, there is gravel around the left side, back as far as the edge of the main house. And there is gravel underneath the deck. Do you see those 4x4s sticking up there? That's to hold the wood.
Yep.
Underneath that is a large gravel thing. And then from left to right, in front of the windows and those French doors is a gravel, there was a gravel trench. It's already there, and it goes off to the left, and down into the woods. There's already a drainage system there.
And it doesn't go directly towards the lake, right?
No,
It diverts it to the woods. Yeah, as you
Yeah.
said. Okay, very good. Well, you're ahead of us.
Yep, you are. Yep, it's good. Well, I hope that helps explain what the expectation would be, and it sounds like you may have already met it. So,
Yeah.
But I would also say that Gary, he is your person, your contact person in any of these things. Gary Fuller, the CEO. Should you have any questions about what's adequate or sufficient,
Mhm.
strongly encourage you to consult with him.
All right.
Would imagine you're all good. So if that's okay, I'd like to move on to making sure we get a vote on number 2. George, you had said yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right. Craig
Yes.
and Pete,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I too am in favor of this. So that's 5 in favor, none opposed. Number 3, will adequately provide for disposal of all wastewater. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met based on submission materials in the public record. So therefore, those in favor of, oh, Craig, did you have something? I'm sorry.
That's not applicable.
Uh,
Wastewater is what, sewage?
Yes, wastewater is sewage, yeah. So the question is it not applicable or is it because they're not doing anything?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. In this case, I think it's not applicable.
Okay. Good. All right. Next, will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Would this be considered not applicable either, or?
I think it's applicable, and I would vote yes.
Okay. So let's go through this then. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met based on submission materials and the public record. So George voted yes. Craig?
Yes.
Pete? Pete Sargent?
Yes.
Sarah? Sarah?
Yes.
I too, 5 in favor. None opposed. Number 5, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland waters. By a vote, the board found this standard was met based on submission materials in the public record.
I would say this one's not applicable as well, since there's no clearing or expansion of the footprint proposed.
Okay. I would agree. Do other board members agree too?
I agree.
Yes.
Great. Moving along. Here's an interesting one. 6, will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan. There's nothing
That's
going on.
Not
Yeah,
applicable.
Yeah, I think that's NA, again, for the same reasons as the last one.
Mhm.
Not to mention, it's nowhere near any of the 4 sites.
So for language, would it be acceptable to say no building activity proposed is in proximity to the resources?
I
Something?
think you could easily just say not applicable, Peter.
Okay, I'm good.
I don't know how the others feel, but
Yeah, that's fine, NA, sure.
I don't want to make it more complicated, but if someone felt strongly that said, oh, we need to have some language in there, I would be happy to put it in. We can start with NA, and if someone thinks about it, says, oh, we should do something, then let me know. Number 7, will avoid problems associated with the floodplain development and use. Floodplain. By a vote, the board found this standard was met based on submission materials and public record. So floodplain. George,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
thank you. Sarah,
Yes.
I too am in favor. 5 in favor. None opposed. Number 8 is in conformance with the provisions of 15 land use standards. So Susan, there are a number of these that we go through. Many of them are not applicable, but we do go through every one. And board, we have I think lately been at the end of all these. Do we want to take that approach about these as a slate rather than each one?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Peter, with the exception of those that are clearly not applicable.
Right. So talking about land use standards. So 8A, minimum lot standards. Is that
That's pretty non-applicable, I think, right? Nothing's changing.
minimum lot? Yeah, they're not. I would say not applicable. I think. Or would it have met it? No, I still think it's not applicable. I don't know. How do others feel?
I think it could go either way, Peter.
Okay.
I mean,
Anybody have any
clearly-
strong feelings that we'd have to?
Not really. I mean, clearly it's being met, but part of it is the limited scope of the project.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a great aspect of this is that what is being proposed is very limited in nature. Scope is very reduced compared to other projects that we see. So I just put not applicable. So for B, principal and accessory structures, are there any? We see doing the same thing with that, NA?
I wouldn't. I would suggest that it's being met
Okay. I can live with that.
because that includes the height, maximum height.
Indeed. And then moving along to C, campgrounds. None are proposed in this particular case. And A. D, individual private campsites. None are being proposed. And A. Commercial and industrial uses. The nature of this project does not have that, so I would say not applicable. Parking areas,
I would say NA.
roads and driveways,
Ditto.
signs,
Ditto.
stormwater runoff.
That's applicable.
So I'll say based on submission materials in the public record and adherence to the condition.
Correct.
J, septic waste disposal systems. Probably NA, like we talked about before. Essential services, the all-important essential services.
It's NA here.
And Susan, this is extremely important. Mineral exploration and extraction.
You're not planning to go
What
find
to
there.
offer for that is my bone density test.
Okay. Well played. I put NA for that one. Agriculture. Is the board satisfied with not applicable because there's nothing proposed? N, timber harvesting and land management roads. Again, the scope of this does not support any of that. Clearing and removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting.
Again, NA, none's proposed.
P, hazard trees, storm damaged trees, and dead tree removal. None.
Say the same.
Q, exemptions to clearing and vegetation removal requirements.
NA,
R, revegetation requirements.
NA,
A. S, erosion and sedimentation control.
It's kind of an A too.
yeah, I agree.
There's no excavation going on.
Right. Good points. T, shoreline stabilization.
Same.
For the same reasons, right? U,
Yep.
soils.
The same, since there's no new septic system being proposed.
Okay. V, water quality.
This applies because of the stormwater.
So based on the submission of materials in the public record and adherence to this, to the condition. W, historical and archaeological sites. Which would be NA, I would say. And the last one that we have listed is resource protection. This is not in a resource protection district. I would think from a land use perspective, this would be NA. And then we're through that part. Next is the conditions of approval needed to meet required Belgrade Shoreline Zone Ordinance findings in section 16D. So Susan, this is where we have a standard condition that George referenced and I talked about a little bit, is to manage the stormwater runoff from new or expanded structures in accordance with 15I of the Belgrade Shoreline Zoning Ordinance and Maine DEP's best management practices as outlined in their publication. Such measures are to be put in place prior to building use. And please know this is a standing condition that we include in all of our permits unless it's deemed unnecessary. But we talked about this one already specifically. So planning board members, are there, is there something brewing that would need another condition that anybody is thinking about at this time?
No.
Not
I
me.
can't think of anything.
Oh,
Okay, thanks. So that gets through the conditions area. Then we're on to the decisions area. So based on the above findings of fact and conclusions of law on 7, the town of Belgrade Planning Board approved by a vote, and we'll do that in a second, the shoreline permit application. I'm just putting your name in here. With the above conditions and at a meeting on today's date. Developed these written findings of fact and conclusions of law and adopted these findings on today's date. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to vote on this. Then we'll take a roll call vote and then we can record what the vote is. So would someone be willing to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as proposed with the standard stormwater condition.
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. Any more discussion? Well, Susan, do you have any questions for us?
No, I think I've already met the standard stormwater condition. Is
Mhm.
that, does that seem so to you?
Well, you're gonna add it onto your porch when you put your new roof on, but other than that,
Yep.
yes.
Would you say that again, please? I just want to make sure I
So
understand.
when you build your new roof over
Mhm.
your porch,
Mhm.
you'll need to add that on to what you're doing.
You just,
First-
in other words, you need, we need to all agree that it exists. Is that
No,
what?
so when you build your new roof over your porch, just add some crushed stone underneath that as well on your drip line.
Okay, even though there's a lot of crushed stone already there.
Well, if it's already there, then you don't have to add it as long as it's on your drip line.
Right, okay,
Right,
okay.
right, exactly. So Susan, another way to think about it from our perspective, if you looked at it from a bird's eye view, look down,
Yeah,
your roof went out from the existing drip line. This is what Craig's talking about. If a new roof was different than the existing drip line, that's what he's talking about, new,
okay,
be done, right?
I got it. Okay, I just want to make sure I really get it.
Yeah, and as Peter mentioned earlier, if you have a question about whether what you have already on site meets that condition, just give Gary a call and he'll come out and take a look at it and verify that for you.
Okay,
And I would want to take a moment to say thank you for a very complete application, and the nature of the scope of this made it very easy for us to go through it. I think it was a well-constructed application that helps. So thank you for that.
you're very welcome, and thank you for all of the time and work you put into protecting the water quality in the town and, you know, the quality of life that we have.
You're very welcome. We do try hard, and it's our turn to vote. So we've had a motion that's been seconded. We've had some discussion. That's all good. I would now do a roll call vote. So those in favor of approving this application, as was the motion. George,
Yes,
Craig,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes,
Sarah,
yes,
and I too am in favor. So that's 5 in favor, none opposed. So that has been approved. It will be mailed to you, and that link to the DEP application would be something I would say to follow. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but do we also have any of those publications at the town office
I don't
too?
know what, okay, is that something I have to do?
If we have it, we'd give it to you. I guess I'm asking either Gary or,
I think we still have some, yes.
okay.
Okay, so what do I have to do? Why don't you tell me to make sure I have it?
I was just suggesting that if you wanted to come by the office, you could see that publication, pick it up, hold it in your hand, and you could then know what we're talking about with that crushed stone.
Okay, but do I have to fill something else out to go ahead with the
No.
project? Okay,
no,
you'll
No.
get your permit in the mail.
okay, and is it possible, I appreciate it, are you gonna make sure you send it to my Belgrade post office box? Because I don't get mail delivered to this address.
Okay.
So-
Yeah.
I
On
don't-
your, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but the address on the application is where we would go. Right?
And-
So,
It doesn't say the post office box on the application, so that's why I want to give it to you.
so it's not PO Box 122?
Oh, it is, yes. I guess I did put that there. All right,
Yep.
sorry.
So if that's sufficient for you, that's where it would go by default.
Okay, and because I'd like to post the permit, is it possible for you to also email it to me or only to mail it? I mean, I would like to have a hard copy, but I would also, if possible, love to have a digital copy. If that can happen.
I defer to the experts, those who know more about how it's transmitted. So either Sheila, Gary, or Julie. Do any of you know if this can be done that way?
I don't myself.
Okay, well, I'm sure it's going to get here very soon. So
It won't take long. It will
No.
not. All right, so we've marked this 5 in favor, none opposed. It's approved. It will be mailed to you and it will not take long.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate what you've done. So thank you. And for Julie, for your sake, I've got the findings of fact document. I will send that to you tonight. So you'll have that as part of the record. And
Have a nice evening.
Have a nice
thank you,
evening.
Susan. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I know. Okay, thanks everybody. That was so smooth because of the nature of that project, right? The proposed
Don't act so
activity.
surprised.
Well, I'm so gun shy right now. It's like
Well,
I
it's good
kinda-
that we at least get the easy ones done quickly.
I know. All righty. All right, everybody. Next up, according to our agenda, is the Gagny and Son Holding Company, Inc. Application that's before us. And Mr. Coffin, you're here for, I think, to help answer some questions. Is that correct? Just so you know, Jim, you're on mute, so just,
Thank you, sir.
sure.
I'm also here
Alrighty.
with the owner Dwight Allison, who's also on here tonight.
Hi, Dwight. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, you're welcome. Jim's the smart one of the two of us, though.
I'm glad he's here. All right. Where are we here? Okay, so Jim, help and Gary, please help us out where you are with this. It looks like what you'd like to do tonight is go through this application to determine what's complete and what's not. Is that correct or is that not correct?
That is correct. That's what you typically do your first meeting.
Okay. Great. And Jim and Dwight, have you been able to confer or consult with Gary on this as we've gone along? Because he's an excellent resource and it's a great way to help nip things in.
He's been a big help.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. All right. Forgive me. I want to ask the plan board members of completeness. Does anybody have a copy of the checklist?
I do, Peter.
You do? Is it a blank one, George?
Well, I just printed out the one that was in the application. So yes, it's blank.
Okay. Would it be okay, Sina, between you, if we went through it and then, like, if we said, okay, this is the item on the checklist, and then we go to the application and
Yeah,
say,
you want me to be a scribe?
yeah, would you mind?
No, not at all.
Thank you, George.
Wait a minute, hold on, Pete, hold on a second. Before we get going here, I just want to figure out in my mind where this new building's gonna go. Where are we in the map? I'm looking at the environmental review and fish wildlife observation priority habitat. You get the map there. Where is this building going to go? According to that map.
I think it'd be a little bit easier if you looked at the SPCC plan by CE&S and look at their map, and I can pinpoint it for you.
Yeah, what page are we talking about?
It's the only map in there. It's probably halfway through it.
Let's see, you got this thing in pages or what?
It's only about 100 and something pages.
That's all, huh? 100, yeah. So,
So it's on the south side of the property. It's where the existing trailers are located right now. It's also south of the block plant. It's just above or north of Penny Road.
It's about 109 of our 135 pages.
Okay, hang on. Pete, did you hear that?
I just listened to it. Yeah, I think I have a general idea now where it's at.
Yeah, Peter, it's pretty well displayed on a drawing labeled C-0, which is towards the latter part of the application.
C-0.
And Jim, did you say around page 109? Is that Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, that's about page 109 of 135 pages. I don't know what was attached to the entire thing that you got of other people's applications for tonight.
If you just look at our plan that we did for C0, it also show it clearer than a bell as well. And that should be one in the book, in our set of plans that we submitted.
All right, I'll get it figured out. I don't want to hold things up at all. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we said it's over by Penny Lane. I'm just trying to get basically where we are.
Penny Road, yeah, just north of Penny Road.
All right, so it's behind the other thing towards Penny Road.
I'm looking at the location map from SLM site location map. Coffin is the they published it as colored.
C0 would be your best resource for this, to be honest with you. If you looked at C0, it's clearer than a bell.
Pete, did you happen to get that the publication that was provided?
I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I get the hard copy.
Okay, so the hard copy. Yep.
I think I have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the lower right, it says C0.
Says what?
C is in Charlie, 0.
I guess I'm looking at something else, but it's all right. I've got a map here. Another
Okay.
map here. I'm satisfied.
Okay. All right. Great.
When else was satisfied, I've been good.
All right. George, you want to help us out with the checklist?
Yeah, sure. So do you just want me to run down each one, read it, and then we can decide?
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Okay. So the first item on the completeness checklist, and this is just for Mr. Coffin and Mr. Allison's benefit. This is the same one that is in your application packet that you provided. This is the same checklist that we're using. So the first is the application form, which I believe is complete.
Yep.
Been provided. The second is the applicant's agent authorization letter, which we have. So that's complete. The next is a copy of deed, option, sales agreement, lease, or other documentation of title, right, or interest. And the application includes a deed, and we've been provided with a corrected deed by email. So that is complete. The next is a written waiver request, and there is a waiver request for phosphorus control management or phosphorus export. So that's complete as well. So we'll have to get back to that later, Peter.
Okay.
Copy of the tax map, that's been provided, so that's complete. Copy of the Kennebec County soil map, that's been provided, and so that's complete. There's also a copy of the USGS topographical map showing the property location, so that's been completed. A copy of the Belgrade shoreland zoning map showing property location, that has also been provided. What was provided was a copy from the comprehensive plan, actually, but it seems to me it serves the purpose. If I'm going too fast, Peter or anybody else, just tell me to put the brakes on.
Okay. So far, so good.
Copy of flood insurance map showing property, that's been provided. Copy of National Wetlands Inventory map from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that's been provided. Copy of the Maine Geological Survey Significant Sand and Gravel Aquifer map, that's been provided. Copy of Maine Drinking Water Program map of public drinking water supplies showing property location. That's not applicable, probably, but we can discuss that. The no public drinking water supply is being proposed. There is a private well being proposed to serve that building, but that's it. So probably that's not applicable.
I would tend to agree that that would be not applicable in this case.
Next item is copy of MDOT highway entrance or access permit. That's not applicable. There's documentation to that effect. Likewise, for the copy of an MDOT traffic movement permit, that's not applicable. Copies of other required state or local permits. This probably deserves a little discussion. A copy of the applicant's site location of development law approval and permit is provided. So that has been provided. What I didn't see myself, and there's reference that one is required, is a permit from the state fire marshal's office, I believe, for the large propane tank, although I didn't realize that state fire marshal's office had jurisdiction over those, but apparently I learned something new.
And let me ask the board this, did we get something from Julie today which talked about something from the fire marshal?
From the town fire chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the fire chief, not the fire
Yeah.
marshal.
So
Okay.
maybe Mr. Coffin could clarify for us.
Yes, we are waiting on that fire marshal permit for the 1,000-gallon propane tank above ground.
Okay.
We haven't gotten it in our hands yet, but it's in transition, hopefully.
Okay. So that would be something that we would say we would need to have that.
Right. So we'll just leave that to get back to.
Yeah.
So I guess question, George, then Mackenzie will, Chief Mackenzie will take a look at that fire marshal documentation. Does he have to see it? Belgrade chief, fire chief?
I don't believe there's anything in the ordinance that requires that. He sort of made his own assessment, and that's what's documented in the letter that we were provided today by email, that the fire department is able to meet any, along with, the agreements they have with surrounding towns to meet the fire protection needs of this facility. And Mr. Coffin, if I mischaracterize anything, please speak up.
No, you're right on, George.
And so Pete, but if we get something from the fire marshal's office, a permit, then it would be part of the record. So should our chief Mackenzie have any questions, he could just go to the record and it would be there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I know from personal experience that the state fire marshal office takes forever to issue their permits.
They're 3 months out right now on all building permits.
Yeah. They're chronically understaffed all the time, it seems like.
Talk to Jeremy.
Right, because he works over
Right.
there.
He lives
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah.
And the next item is the site development plan, and there's a long list of all the items that the ordinance calls for in the plan itself. I don't know if you really want me to read it all. I did personally go to the town office to look at the full-size plans, the 24 by 36 or whatever they are. And I noticed there were a couple of things that I didn't see on the plan that's in this list, but how do you want me to handle this, Peter?
So I'd say if you notice something that was in the list but not on the plan, let's highlight those so that Jim could know what those things are, I would say.
And it may be that also that I didn't interpret the plan correctly. But the items that I want to get back to the scale a little bit, because I think there's an error in the scale between a couple of the drawings, but we'll skip over that for a moment. I didn't see where the drainage structures, the stormwater lines going to the retention ponds were located that are required. That, well, I didn't see any. There are. I did find the drains, the stormwater sewer drains themselves, but I didn't find the piping, the lines that go to the retention ponds. I didn't see where the driveway was designated. There's going to be a couple of dumpsters. I didn't see where those were going to be located, and that's really it. It's kind of minor stuff, other than the driveway and the stormwater line, and maybe Jim can clarify.
Sure. I'd love to talk about it. So there's a catch basin on site that's located to the east of the building that we're showing a pipe going into. On the scale we have it, I mean, you're never going to see where it goes to retention pond. I guess I could show it on C0 if you wanted me to, where that basin goes and how it gets to wherever it's going. Is that what you're looking for, George?
Well, the only reason I bring it up is, and I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but your stormwater management plan is what you already gotten approved by DEP, and those retention ponds are a major part of that. So I guess we just need to know that, in fact, the stormwater from this proposal is actually reaching those retention ponds.
Well, you're over a gravel aquifer here too with type A soil. So I'd say 95% of it will never get to that pond. It's just whatever's going through that pipe's going to get there. You are correct.
Yeah.
As for the dumpsters, I can show them on C0. They're behind building 2. They're not even near this building. The building's up a little. And what was the other item you said? The dumpster?
The driveways.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're going to be any.
There isn't. It's just existing access right now. It's the way
Okay.
it's set up.
And so there's no plan for paving.
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, great. And just to be clear, Jim, this is C1 that I'm looking at, right?
Correct. But the only way you're going to see those items George just listed would be on C0
Right.
because they're a little bit away from this site.
Okay.
Actually, that for me personally, Peter, that explanation is more than satisfactory. You know, I don't know where the retention. I can see on Google Earth where I think they are, but
They're to the north.
yeah, that's what I thought. The other thing I just wanted to point out was I noticed when I scaled the buffer area along the Penny Road,
Yeah.
that C0 and C1 both are 1 inch equal 20 feet. And I'm guessing C0 is that's probably not the scale of that drawing.
Should be 100, I think, George. I'll take a look at that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate that.
Okay. I guess it was something like that. So Peter, I think, you know, with a correction to the scale, this would be complete, and the addition of the dumpster. So I don't know if you want to just hold it back until we see those 2 corrections, or.
I would say yes, let's do that and get those corrections and we'll be good.
Okay.
So what do you mean? That's gonna hold up progress to see the corrections? We're gonna have to come to another meeting to see the corrections? Or can they just put them on there and we can continue?
We're going to have to put them on there. We'll have to get them. And
So we're gonna have to have another meeting before we can even move on for dumpsters?
My suggestion would be and what I would be comfortable with, I mean, what the ordinance says is we need to have a complete application before we have the meeting that the public's invited to.
Right.
But if this is all that is outstanding, I personally would be comfortable with moving ahead with sending out the notices and rely on Jim to provide that corrected drawing at that same meeting.
Exactly.
If this is all that's outstanding. at
'Cause
the
it
end
is-
of today.
Right? 'Cause to me, it seems very fixable. It seems like that would be something that we could
Yeah,
have.
it's
whatever
kind of minor.
meetings.
It's very minor.
Well, the scale's not so minor, but
Okay. So that takes us through that.
Peter,
I,
I do have a question.
okay.
I I'm gonna play Mr. Baker in this meeting. And in the answer to question 32, this application was wonderful, very, very thorough, very, very complete. There is an item that says that if the applicant says yes, says, please describe the type of items to be stored outside and what measures will be taken to prevent children from accessing. I know that we're talking about only about dumpsters, basically. And I don't even picture a child going behind that needs to go and play in that area. But I'm not sure if we need a statement there, say, well, the dumpsters are going to have tops in them. The dumpsters are going to be closed, they're going to be locked or something like that.
I don't know about that.
I've
don't
never
agree
seen
with
a dumpster be locked on a commercial site before in my life. That'd be something new to me.
Yes, and I disagree with that as well.
Just that the question asks for what measures are going to be taken to prevent children from accessing it. So, I mean, Mr. Coffin, I'm new to the ward, so it's the only thing I looked through the whole application that was not quite answered. So I thought I'd mention it.
The dumpster
Okay.
is about, so what would you say, Jim? Typically 6 feet high where the top flips up and the tops are down except when stuff's being tossed into it. So for a child to get into the dumpster, you need to be able to climb about 6 feet in the air and lift the cover off it, to be able to get inside it.
Peter, I would just note that one of the dumpsters is for recycling cardboard and the other is for out and out solid waste trash. And as Craig and Mr. Coffin's already noted, this is part and parcel of a very large manufacturing facility. So, it's not just at the side of the road kind of thing. But in terms of process tonight, we're just trying to determine if we have a complete application. We can always return to a substantive discussion of whether the whether this part of the ordinance is being met.
Yep.
At our next meeting.
And that's really a great distinction because we need to determine completeness first. So let's continue doing that. That is a good point. And Sarah, that's a good question. And I think we can get back to this if there are other questions about this at the next meeting.
The next item is a detailed to scale drawing showing location and construction specifications of drainage features, roads, sidewalks, access points, driveways, parking, traffic control features, fire control structures, and public improvements. I believe that's been provided.
Through the site plan?
Well, this is more of a detailed drawing, and there are a whole series of detailed drawings provided as part of the site plan. I think it's C-1.
Yeah.
Or addendums to it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Next item is documentation meets applicable state, federal air quality regulatory requirements. That's addressed in the application, so I believe that's complete. Next item is soil erosion control plan. That's part of the site plan. Again, an addendum to C1, I think. Anyway, that's been provided, so that's complete.
Yep.
The next item is a main DEP certified contractor name and number. That has not been provided because they're going to bid, and we'll only have that at the time that once that bid has been awarded. I believe that's correct. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's something that in the past we've handled by way of a condition once we get
Sure.
that. So that's not complete, but can be, put in the parking lot for now,
Absolutely.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Location of site structure listed on National Register of Historic Places, that's not applicable, I believe. Location of Maine Historic Preservation Commission archaeological sites, also not applicable.
Agreed.
Information needed to meet air quality standard. We already have documentation that they will, and because there's essentially no air emissions, so that's really not applicable. The next item I'm not certain about, and that is information needed to meet access to public street standards, which is in Article 6, Section 2. So that has to do with lines of sight, and where vehicles will be accessing the public road. I personally didn't see anything in the application dealing with that, but I could have missed it.
So we aren't proposing any new curb cut whatsoever. That's been in place for at least 15, 20 years, the current location where we're coming through. If you want us to shoot a sight distance there, I mean, we can, but it's been there an awfully long time.
I don't think it's really applicable because it's the building's up and behind there. And, they're coming through this, like you say, the same entrance.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too,
Yeah, maybe, yeah, Pete, maybe the applicant could just state what he just stated, and that could kind of cover everything.
There's no more employees, so it's just going to be, it's going to be very slight difference in traffic. And I don't see where it's an issue.
Okay, so is it the consensus that that should be not applicable?
I would agree to that, yes.
From my perspective, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'd go along with it, just if the applicant wanted to add a statement in there in the application addressing that issue would be all right, just to cover himself.
That,
But,
if that could be provided just in letter form, that would be helpful. So we'll just set that aside for now, but that's a pretty minor matter that could be just addressed in a letter, I would think, if others agree with that, and then we can come back to it and check it off at the next meeting.
that'd be fine.
Yep, I'm good with that approach.
So what do you need for a letter?
Just as Pete Sargent suggested, just a letter saying what Mr. Coffin just mentioned, that because it's not clear in the application, or at least it wasn't clear to me, that all the vehicle access was going to be using the existing access point to the public road.
Yep.
Okay.
Couple sentences, really.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
That's fine.
Thank you. Next item, protection measures for historic and archaeological resources. I don't believe that's applicable,
I would agree.
since there are none. The next item is something I have a question about. The next item is estimated quantities of flammable, combustible, and hazardous substances to be stored, handled, or generated, including waste oil and antifreeze. And then there's several more that deal with sort of the same subject matter after that. And the only reason I have a question about this with regard to hazardous substances is, and Mr. Coffin or Mr. Allison, this is reflective of my ignorance about the process of making concrete products, but we already, the fact that there's propane going to be there, that's not of concern to me at all. But what I'm would be interested in knowing more about is the admixtures that are going to be used, because a little bit of research online, I found that many don't use circular listed hazardous substances in their makeup, and some do, including some compounds called 4-chloro-3-methylphenols. And so there's an actual EPA reporting limit if it should be spilled for that. So maybe you could enlighten me a little bit as to what these admixtures are, and if indeed they are and contain circular listed hazardous substances.
Why, you want to handle that? You're muted, Dwight.
Maybe he doesn't want to handle it.
Oh, he does.
Sorry. I'll need to check with Peter Gagney on it. I'm new to this April 1st, and I know we use cement, sand, and water to make concrete. And I would guess we're not using the stuff you're talking about, but I'll have to double check with Peter. I don't know if you have any better info, Jim, or not.
I talked to Kevin about this, and there was just some oil-based admixture and something else. And I thought I had it written in this application somewhere, but I can't seem to find it right now. One of us will get that information for you, George.
Okay. Yeah, because there is mention in the application about, one of the deliveries will be, truck deliveries will be admixture. It's pretty infrequent, but, and since I don't know anything about that, I was just curious what it contained for chemical compounds, and that's where I stumbled across that information. I actually came across some material data safety sheets, and that's what I'm relying on.
We'll check with either Kevin or Peter will be able to answer it right off the bat.
Okay. Apparently it's very specific to the type of admixture being utilized, so many don't have anything of concern in it, and a few do. I don't know how the board wants to handle that item. There's a related item that reads, other information needed to meet material storage standard.
That's for oil and substance.
Yeah, actually, that's not really. Yeah, that's really not relevant here. I guess it's just whether or not there's a need for inventory of hazardous substances to be stored and handled.
So would it be acceptable that once we get the update from Dwight and Jim, because it sounds like they wanted to double check on that. And then,
Right.
Yeah, I
feel very comfortable. There's no hazardous material storage on site, but I want to give you the right answer instead of guessing. So
Yeah.
I'm going to wait until the next meeting and give you the correct answer on that.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. Next item
And
is,
I can also tell you what there's nothing different will be done in this new building than is currently being done in the existing building.
okay. Well, that's good to know too.
Yep.
The next item is evidence meets DEP siting regulations for oil storage and hazardous substance facilities. I don't believe that's applicable here.
Right, because they're not proposing to store any of that.
Right. You know, the admixture is just being delivered by truck, as I understand it. Copy of application provided to fire chief by planning board or CEO. And I take it that's been done, Gary, right? That's why we have the letter from the fire chief.
That is correct.
Okay. I'm smart that way. I can figure that kind of stuff out. Other information needed to meet material storage standard, including bulk storage of combustible and flammable materials and hazardous substances. I think we need to, so that's the state fire marshal's office permit is part and parcel of that. I don't know what, that might say or have for conditions. So I don't know how you want to handle that.
So it would seem to me that it would be contingent upon that from the fire marshal's office to satisfy this.
So that's just for the propane tank?
Correct.
So that might be something if it's a outstanding item, at the end of the process that could again be handled by way of a condition. Because as I said before, my experience with the state fire marshal's office is it takes considerable time to get a permit from them.
I would agree, because, we put 1,000-gallon tanks for residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, point well taken, Craig. Next item is a visual impact assessment. I don't believe that's applicable here.
I would agree.
Next item, plan based on inland fish and wildlife critical areas program recommendations to mitigate impact on natural areas, wildlife habitat, including deer wintering areas. We received by email comments from both those agencies this afternoon indicating that there's really no impact. I mean, the impact if there was any, was years ago when this site was originally cleared and grubbed. So I believe that's not applicable.
Yeah, I would say either that or it's complete.
Yeah, either or.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah, but this calls for a plan to mitigate the impact. I don't believe there is any impact. So
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The closest resource really is those kettle hole ponds, penny kettle hole ponds, and the bogs that are associated with them. That's quite a ways away. Other information needed to meet the natural resource protection standard. I would say that's been met by virtue of the submissions from those two state agencies.
Agreed.
My fan's blowing the papers around. Next item is the board requiring post-development noise monitoring and reporting plan? If not required, mark not applicable. And I believe that's the case. There's documentation in the application that they're going to be able to meet the noise standard at the property line.
So from my perspective, I would say not applicable.
Everybody else okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Information needed to meet these are kind of backwards. Information needed to meet the noise standard, that's been provided in the application.
Mm-hmm. So it's been met.
Exterior lighting plan and specifications for lighting fixtures, that also has been provided in the application. along with their location, the location of the lighting fix, the downward facing lighting fixtures. Is board requiring post-development light monitoring and reporting plan? If not required, mark not applicable. I would guess this is not applicable, is my own personal judgment, but I don't know what the rest of you feel.
I agree.
I would agree.
Information to meet parking standard. That's been provided in considerable detail, along with the site plan shows where the parking spaces are going to be. A written statement from the fire chief on capacity of fire department to provide adequate protection. That was provided to us today by email.
Yep.
Written statement from Sheriff's Department approving any proposed security measures. This might be not applicable but I'm not certain.
Well, in the ordinance or in your, in this application, it comes out and asks you, are you relying on the sheriff's office for any of your operation? And we are not.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep. Right. So having heard that, I would say it's not applicable.
I agree.
Okay. Pete, you okay with that too?
I just thinking, Sarah, when she brought up the security issue with kids getting into the dumpster. Sarah, does that shed some light on the concern you might have where?
So the only reason I brought that up, I guess we move on thinking about things depending on our background. Where I grew up, they made septic tanks that are, I'll cement, they're underground usually. And one child once playing hide and seek in the neighborhood, that at the point that the construction started, that tank was empty, but it rained a few weeks after that, and then they were playing hide and seek, and the child, decided to get hide in there, and he drowned. So I don't know if these dumpsters drain water. I don't know if there's going to be an employee that will take their child there by mistake, and the child will wander in that area. I just don't know if the chance for a child to be there and the dumpsters will be a hazard for them. I have no idea. The only dumpsters I ever seen have been office for office buildings. I suspect that these dumpsters are much bigger than those. So I have no idea. I just Garden is such a great employer in the community, and just the thought that we will leave a crack open for something like this to happen is ridiculous. And this is the time to do it. That's where I come from, I guess. And you're listening more a mother and a person that had dealt with children for a long time into this. So I have no idea how the mechanics are. I just know that the question was in the application and it was not addressed, and maybe it's not practical in this situation, but I just thought we cover our bases into it. That's all.
So that still doesn't, we're not talking about those. We're talking about the sheriffs, and I don't think it's applicable.
The other thing to consider here is at night, they have a gate that locks on each end of the operation. So there's no vehicles coming in there at night. Once they leave, there's no way you can get in there. Just adding fuel to the fire, if you will.
And a dumpster doesn't hold water either, so.
Well, thank you for that reassurance.
Great. So relative to the part about the sheriff's department, are we okay saying not applicable? It sounds like the applicant is not requesting anything, and they have their own measures to take care of a certain amount of I'm just gonna say security. If that's fair enough, Jim.
So I'd say NA.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah's concern is a legitimate one, but I think we have an adequate explanation.
Mhm.
The next item is other information to meet public safety and emergency services standard. I can't think of anything else, so I think that's NA. I don't know how the others feel, the rest of you feel.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, NA.
I would agree. NA.
Information to meet screening of structures, parking lots, and other non-essential uses standard, non-residential uses standard. Information is provided in the application and on the site plan that addresses that. So I believe that's complete.
Excellent.
Taking advantage of existing wooded vegetation that exists between this and the Penny Road. To scale, profile, face-on view of proposed signs. There are not going to be any signs, so that's not applicable, I believe.
I would agree.
Other information to meet sign standards, again, not applicable. Stormwater management plan, they have a DEP approved stormwater management plan that's part of their site location of development law permit. So I believe that, and they've provided a copy of that permit. So that I believe has been complete. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Other information to meet stormwater management standard. Again, I think that's been complete. Subsurface waste disposal evaluation form, that's been provided. So that's complete. Other information to meet waste standard. I believe that's been provided as well. Groundwater quality and quantity impact assessment. There's information to that effect regarding their water withdrawal, which is less than 2,000 gallons per day. So I believe that's complete in the application.
Yep.
Copy of deed restrictions related to drinking water and groundwater protection. I don't believe that's applicable, but that's just my own assessment.
Right. There's nothing in there that would trigger groundwater protection. Is that correct? In that vicinity?
No. The worst case scenario I could think of would be, I mean, first off, propane is not a groundwater threat. It's, it's a release to the air if you have a failure, but or an explosion hazard, fire explosion hazard. But there's no petroleum liquid petroleum storage. Really, the only issue that sort of on the outside of the range of possibilities would be if that admixture included significant quantities of hazardous substances. And at the moment, we don't know that, but my personal feeling is that's probably unlikely.
Right. Right. Yeah. My
I have
thinking is,
confirmed. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Jim. I was thinking I just wanted to mention my thinking is that it's probably not applicable in this case.
Yeah. I don't think that this applies here. There was a condition, and it isn't a deed restriction. There was a condition in their approval from DEP that any new wells be kept at least 300 feet from a site of a 2,000 underground storage tank discharge. And, but I don't think that it is what this is describing here. And I'm guessing their new well is far more than 300 feet from. The next item is copy of Maine Drinking Water Program Public Water Supply Approval and Source Water Protection Plan. That's not applicable because the proposed well is going to be a private well. It's not a public drinking water supply well.
Agreed.
And copy of DEP stormwater management permit. And as I mentioned earlier, that's already been provided. The next item is phosphorus export control method. Again, they're requesting a waiver from that, so nothing's been provided other than what's in the waiver request, which does have some substantive detail.
I've used this many times before. That the thing about phosphorus is that a lot of people don't understand. You probably do that pavement and gravel have a much higher export factor than a building does. So if you're putting a building over gravel, you're going to reduce the amount of phosphorus leaving the site, believe it or not. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thanks for that.
That's phosphorus 101 right there.
So I think, Peter, we need to come back to this when we consider the waiver request.
I would agree.
That would be my suggestion anyway.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
And likewise for other information to meet water quality standard. That we come back to that once we've decided on the what we're going to do with the waiver request.
Yep.
And then everything else is not applicable because it's all related to mining, commercial wind farms, wind turbines, and so, you know, obviously that's not part of this proposal. And so the remaining items on the checklist are all not applicable.
Agreed. Very much agreed.
So to recap, the items that we need to come back to are copies of required state permits. That would be the state fire marshal office permit. And again, that might be handled through a condition of approval.
Yep.
The minor changes to the site plan, including any correction, if any needed, and showing where the dumpsters are going to be. The DEP certified contractor name and number, again, that could possibly be handled as a condition.
Yep.
Information needed to meet access to public street standard. That's the short letter that we described earlier.
Yep.
The estimated quantities of hazardous substances, we'll get more information about that if it's applicable at all. Once a little bit more research has been done on what the contents of the admixture are.
I know one of the individuals at Gagney, Kevin LeClaire, told me that there's absolutely no hazardous waste involved in this whatsoever, but I'll get you some more documentation anyway.
Yeah, well, and I actually saw online like I said, the safety data, material safety data sheet from a vendor that, you know, had it listed as one of the components being a CERCLA listed compound. And so that's the only reason I'm asking.
Understood.
So we'll get back to that. Other information and meet the material storage standard, that again is related to the state fire marshal's office permit. And again, maybe that's something we'll want to handle through a condition. And I believe that's it.
That's what I have
I'm
too.
sorry, the waiver, the phosphorus control items, that'll be addressed when we take up the waiver request.
But you have all the information needed from me on that, correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's my personal assessment. I can't speak for the others, but
Understood.
Yeah, based on the material that you submitted, Jim, in the application for the phosphorus waiver, I think we have enough for a substantive discussion on that.
I got one. Can I speak again, Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to go back to the unlocked trash containers, and I've had a chance to think about this a little bit. And Sarah's concerned. And let me just say, I work at the VA Togas, and we have two open trash, actually 3 open trash containers. And, the lids, they're not locked at night. However, we have a security force, police force on premises. So the security is very high. Now, keeping that in mind, here, there's no security force, obviously, at Gagney. And but it's not a real big concern, but if you may want to go back to the owners of Gagney and say, okay, it could be a point of contention going forward in this application. I don't know, but consider the fact that if you had locks on those containers at night, and you approach your insurance company, and say, listen, we lock our dumpsters at night. I think it's a safety measure. It's a decreased liability out there that Sarah brought up. So we should get a reduction in our premium, annualized premium on their insurance policy. That is a way to save money for the company. So it's something to consider, that you could take it back to your to the applicants, the owners, and it's part of this discussion here.
Do you guys have any information on anybody that's been injured in a dumpster in the state of Maine?
I don't know.
No, you don't. You're making a mountain out of a molehill of nothing. And
Right.
there's no place that locks it, unless they're in the inner city. They're not locking their dumpsters. Let's get over the dumpster thing.
Yeah. And again, I'm trying to, look at Sarah's side of things, and that's all I'm just throwing out.
She was talking about water. The dumpster's not gonna hold water. It's got the door isn't watertight. So
Okay. All right.
let's get over it.
Okay.
Okay, so having gone through the checklist, in my opinion, there are just a few things that we need to still get information on, and then a few other things that may be able to be handled with some conditions. So I would turn to the board now and say, would the board consider this this application complete, such that we could schedule a meeting to handle whatever is not complete and address those things at that whatever meeting that would be?
I think we're at that point, Peter. We can move on, and as you said.
I agree. I mean, this is 98% complete, and what remains is minor stuff that can be provided. It's not substantive, major substantive items that are missing. And so, rather than delaying the process by a meeting, I would suggest that we proceed with the notice to the landowners within 500 feet and finalize this checklist as the first item when we take this up, whenever that comes before us again.
Okay.
I
I
agree
like
with
that.
you.
I'm sorry, Craig.
Yes, sir.
I agree with you both. And go ahead.
No, I'm good.
All right. All right. So this is, I'm thinking we can maybe call this substantively complete, knowing that there are some minor things to still get. Does that sound like a reasonable approach to manage this process a little bit? If so, and Jim and Dwight, I think you heard what George talked about, and that if we go forward with this, then the next time we get a chance to see you, people within 500 feet, according to our ordinance, they'd have to be notified that whenever it is that we meet, that they, for public information, they would know that they would have an opportunity to attend a meeting and be heard if they needed to be heard.
Peter, does the town send the notices out or do we?
I think the town does.
I think so. Yeah. That's, I don't have the ordinance right in front of me. It's over there, but there is a spot where it talks about it.
No, notices to be provided by the code enforcement officer of the town to the landowners that own property within 500 feet.
I thought I read that.
This is within 500 feet of the outer property or 500 feet of the proposed development?
500 feet from your property line. For the lot that this development is on, not all your land, but just the lot that you've identified in the application is where this is located.
There's not gonna be many abutters then because they own just about everything around that one.
Well, that's what I would have guessed, but I don't know for sure.
And that's okay. What we're
Yeah,
just doing, trying to be
So
consistent.
be it. It is what it is.
Okay. So so let me ask the board members if I think we have agreement on this about the direction to go and how we're going to do it. So if that's the case, I would entertain a motion about considering this application substantively complete. There you go.
I would make a motion to that effect with the information that we've highlighted once that's provided.
I second it.
Thank you for a motion and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay. So if this is the direction we're going to go, we're going to vote in a second. This is where we're going to go. After we vote, we want to make sure we talk with Gary about a date, make sure people get notified and all that stuff.
Oh, are you thinking of the first meeting in August, Jim?
I wouldn't have any problem with it, Gary.
Let's plan on that then.
And the date on that is,
I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me. For the first Thursday in August.
And that should be August 5th.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yes.
that's fine.
Then we can get through this and move on.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, everybody. So we have a motion on the floor and seconded. Any more discussion? And we've talked about a date to see the applicants again, knowing that we need to notify people within 500 feet according to our ordinance, right? So any more discussion?
No,
Okay, so all those in favor of this substantively complete as was in the motion. So all those in favor. So George,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Pete,
yes,
Sarah,
Yes.
Thank you. And I too am in favor of calling this substantively complete. Therefore, the next time we talk, we'll probably have some a little more in-depth discussion about a few things, right? But we have, I think, a good application in front of us that provides a lot of the information, and we'll be able to talk about some things. Jim, I thank you for the data you submitted on the waiver discussion, or that will be a discussion about that. So that's going to be, I'm sure, a big thing. So,
Sure.
George, you had a question?
Well, I was just gonna, actually, it's right in line with what you're discussing. So we'll take up the waiver request at our next meeting.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, it's got to
Okay.
be a big, to me, it's going to be a big one.
No, just a process question on my part.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So that, I think that's it for tonight relative to this particular application. Jim or Dwight, do you have any other questions for us about how we're proceeding?
No, I am. It's easy to follow what you're doing. So I mean, I think I know what I need to do before the next meeting, get you this information, and hopefully we can take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight, everyone.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah,
Good night.
it's real. I just want to make sure you know that it's real important for us to know we have a complete application in front of us before we start to go over, substantive discussions about point A or point B or whatever the case may be.
Understood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
All righty, everybody. That was good. It was nice to see. I think they had an application that provided a lot of information, and clearly Jim's put a lot of effort into it. So, and perhaps he's been having some good conversations, Gary, with you, just to see where they are. Don't know.
Yeah, we've talked several times.
Yeah, no, it was a good quality application. It is a good quality application.
Yep.
To their credit, it also benefits from, and we benefit from the fact that it's already gone through DEP review.
Exactly. Yep.
They can bring their technical expertise to bear, which we don't have.
Right, exactly. Okay, so looking at our agenda, the next item after item B is item C, which is called commercial permitting. And this is a discussion of potential commercial permitting of food trucks. Just so everybody knows, I know Anthony asked me about my advice on this, or my sense about the direction to go. And I don't want to get ahead of Craig if he's not here. I apologize. He may have stepped away for a second.
Do you all have Anthony's memo?
On the
I do.
food thing?
It should be in your packet.
Yeah, I have it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's in part of, it's, hang on.
Page 146.
Thank you.
Quite a statement, isn't it?
Can we have a bladder break?
I'm glad you,
A BB.
yeah, that's good. Thanks, everybody. Can we take a break? Craig, I know you just stepped out, but it's requested. Can we do a 5-minute break? Is that okay, everybody?
Yes, it is.
So see you in 5.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
That I got. Thanks. I'm looking for in the package that I got from the website, and I was looking for Anthony's memo. I'm not seeing it. Where?
It's right before the minutes at the very end of the packet.
Okay. So I go from, let's see, last thing about Gagney Then it goes to Belgrade Fire and Rescue. And then for me, right after that is Town of Belgrade minutes.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that, Peter, and I printed this out and just stuck it there.
I think it, Peter, I think it was sent via email separately.
Okay, stand by.
You check your email.
From Anthony.
If need be, I certainly could read my copy if that would be helpful, depending on who has it and who doesn't.
Yeah, I don't want to hold up everybody else.
I don't have it either. I can't find it.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind.
That'd probably be helpful if you read it. Yeah.
So is Sarah back yet? Just 1 second, because I think we said.
I believe she is.
I am.
All right.
Excellent.
Our BB break.
Yeah. So,
so this was dated July 15th, subject matter food trucks. And it's just addressed to the planning board. In the past week, concerns about food trucks located on commercial properties on Route 27 have been raised by a select board member, the roads committee, an appeals board member, and members of Neighbors Helping Neighbors Facebook page. Code Enforcement Officer Gary Fuller and I are interested in your thoughts as we consider whether these ventures should be required to seek commercial permitting. My understanding is the planning board deferred when previously asked about permitting for food trucks, determining that is beyond its purview. But a question has been raised whether these temporary operations constitute an additional or changed commercial use. One truck is located at the kayak shop, which predates the Commercial Development Review Ordinance. While the shop's operations are grandfathered, a legitimate question could be raised whether this different and additional use should be permitted. The same question applies to the food vendors in the parking lot of the consignment shop occupying the former town office. The town's commercial permit does not address additional uses outside the shop. The owner told the CEO she would seek to amend her permit if required. Concerns have been raised about the truck sitting in the state's right-of-way and obstructing motorist sight lines. The CEO and I have driven through the intersection. We do not believe the trucks block drivers' views. We have not noticed parking to be an issue, though it could be. The state transportation department would be responsible for policing its right-of-way. Two other food trucks in town sit on properties with uses that either predate the Commercial Development Review Ordinance or are permitted. The Commercial Development Review Ordinance excludes seasonal farm stands operating for no more than 6 months per year from commercial reviews. While the trucks are seasonal and they do serve food, the CEO notes that they are not farm stands. Again, your input would help shape our own thinking on the issue.
So I want to let you know that when I was thinking about this, when asked about it, it seemed like regulating food trucks was beyond what the planning board was about from my perspective. I do appreciate the idea that it could be considered a different commercial venture. When I was looking at the ordinance and looked at what does not require a review, the seasonal farm stands thing is explicitly listed there. And to me, this felt a lot like what a seasonal farm stand is. Not the same thing as a seasonal farm stand, but very similar to. So that was my thinking. I could be way off base. Maybe I'm missing something very substantial that we need to consider. That was my thinking.
Peter, maybe you know, I had asked Anthony this question. He didn't know, and there's no documentation. This predates my time on the planning board, but apparently there was a decision made that and we've had discussions since I've been on the planning board that alluded to it, but never was a lot of detail, that the Greek sandwich food truck down in the village didn't trigger the commercial development review ordinance. Do you recall, maybe you were on the board at that time, Rich might have been, I'm not really sure who was on the board at that time, what the reasoning was it that it didn't have, 1,200 square feet? My reading of the definition of structure, it meets the definition of structure, but it just isn't big enough. And you may recall also that wrap and roll was approved under the commercial development review ordinance, but the important distinction there is that had a parking lot. And so when you add the square footage of the food truck and the parking lot, it exceeded 1,200 square feet and therefore triggered the commercial development review ordinance.
So a structure, it's a mobile. So it can be there one day and be gone the next day. So a structure can't move, I mean, to me. And
Well,
furthermore, it's sitting on a commercial property at the moment now, anyways, that they own. So I don't know. I don't think at this time there's a call for regulating and making it a commercial use.
Yeah, I guess whether it meets the definition of structure is debatable, Craig, and we can agree or disagree about that. But I think, it's a truck by itself is does not take up 1,200 square feet. But I think my personal feeling is the town has a number of tools to deal with these things. I mean, frankly, our sons were home the last 2 weeks, and we came back from the airport, and they said, geez, what's that ugly thing there? And that was their reaction. I suspect a lot of people react to that, particularly at the old town office. And I think there are ways for the town to deal with this under a number of factors, not just commercial development review ordinance. I mean, first off, particularly the one at the old town office, they're in the DOT right of way. Have the town file a complaint with DOT, get them out of the friggin' right of way. I went by there once and I got cut off by a pickup truck, not going in and out of the parking lot, driving right through the intersection, going across the curb to park next to the barbecue place. Not the barbecue place, whatever it is, the shaved ice or whatever. Admittedly, that was an act of stupidity, but, it does invite stupid acts. The concern about traffic is a legitimate one, and that has to do with, them being in the DOT right away, which of course they have no permission to do so. The other thing is it depends, which facility we're looking at. I think the most egregious is really the old town office. I mean, they have a commercial development review ordinance permit. They never sought or received approval for additional businesses to be on that property. They never sought or received approval to even have outdoor storage of their inventory or all the crap that they have around that building. That makes it so unsightly. And so, basically that's a violation of their existing permit as it stands today. So there's a second tool that we have if we so wish to deal with it. The third tool is the minimum lot size ordinance. Just as we've gone through now for 3 times, we know full well that when you add a commercial use to another commercial use, you have to have enough lot size under the commercial minimum lot size ordinance to be able to do that. So I don't know what the size of that lot where the old town office is. I don't know what the lot size is of the Belgrade Canoe and Kayak parcel, but they not only need the 60,000 square feet, they need the 60,000 square feet times however many commercial uses they have. I mean, we got 3 legal opinions now that say that. So that there's our third tool, it isn't just about the commercial development review ordinance. There are more than ample tools to deal with these situations. I'm frankly less concerned about the one at Belgrade Canoe and Kayak because the cars are parking in the parking lot there for the most part. I know I watched the video of the select board's meeting where this was discussed, and clearly some of the select board members are really concerned about the old town office situation causing a severe accident.
Thank you, George. Pete?
Yeah, if the planning board has been asked to look into it, I think the first thing the board has to do is look at the ordinances that are out there in place regarding food trucks. Because, down in the southern part of the state, you do have more food trucks down there, like in Bridgeport area, down in they're more congested tourist areas. So, and they do have them down there. We'd have to take a look at what's going on with those other towns. How are they addressing the issue? That would help us if we're going to get involved with it. I'm always been of the thought process of let's not reinvent the wheel. The wheel's been invented already out there. So that's my only suggestion at this particular point.
Yep. Good one, Pete. Gary, you had something.
I was gonna say, if Pete said, let's look at our ordinances, our ordinance don't address these.
Right.
And they are temporary. They're registered motor vehicles. I hate to have the planning board take up time doing a commercial development review of one of these temporary carts, especially as full as their plate is right now.
Yep.
I agree. And, you can't, the temporary, so are they really deemed commercial? Because we already have it in our ordinance with the vegetables, the farm stands. And at this point, if someone wants to take it up with the right of way in the state's right of way, whatever, I mean, that's fine, but.
Well, I mean, if the state doesn't care, then why should the town?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not a site problem. I've pulled through the intersection, and Anthony did it as well, just to make sure. And neither one of us saw a site issue.
And I've been through there as well, and we can't judge people because it's not clean enough for other people's standards. If it's not up to, we can't crucify people because it's not clean enough to.
And I'll be honest with you, the biggest traffic hazard that I've witnessed are lawn sales.
Yeah. Yes.
Temporary lawn sales.
I agree.
Yeah. Yep, I hear you.
I agree with Gary that I would hate to see any of these come before us under the commercial development review ordinance for a couple of reasons. I mean, I disagree with you, Craig. I think a case could be easily made that they trigger that the town does have jurisdiction, but I don't think it's necessarily under the commercial development review ordinance. I think I think they are commercial uses. I think they might trigger the minimum lot size ordinance, and it's a real possibility they don't have adequate lot size. I wouldn't want to see it come before us on the commercial development review ordinance, and the reason is I think we'd have to deny it, particularly at the old town office, because of the lack of lot size. As I said, I've seen some really hazardous behavior related to the customers not using the parking lot at the old town office and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, that's a bad intersection, as we all know. It has a pretty high traffic accident rate. Then between Christie's being there and the intersection itself, it's just, making a bad situation worse. But that's the impact. That's not the remedy. I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss this as not an issue of concern to the town.
I've seen hazardous actions down in the village every day. So it's part of, I don't know.
Well, that's entirely different though, Craig, because there's official on-street parking there. That's not the case here. We're on a state numbered highway with no parking. And we have businesses that are in the state right of way. I mean, first off, let's do some enforcement for Christ's sake. Let's file a complaint with DOT. And Gary, you have plenty of jurisdiction on this case because they're in violation of the commercial development review ordinance permit. They're in violation of standard condition.
Well, I can honestly tell you, I haven't seen one customer at the Old Town office that didn't pull into the parking lot. I didn't see anybody parking beside the road.
No, I've seen them parking on the grass.
Okay, I haven't witnessed that.
Yeah, that's where one time I literally got cut off by a pickup truck from New Jersey.
I mean, they don't have much grass.
No, they don't have much grass, but they were able to get this monster pickup truck in there somehow by cutting me off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of what's the term that lawyers use and insurance companies use? It's when you have a nuisance that sort of invites people to create a hazard. I can't remember the term, but it's sort of along those lines. But again, that's the impact, or one of the impacts. I think, if the town wanted to deal with this, we could. But it's not through requiring them to get commercial development review ordinance approval.
I would tend to agree, and it seems like George, you pointed out, there are several tools already in place that could be utilized for things that are around and may be occurring. So before anything else happens, I would say, let's try to if there's a requirement to manage something, and try and leverage those tools. That's what I'm thinking.
And, I know a lot of communities like Algonquin and others have food truck ordinances. I don't think that's the right way to go. We don't need another ordinance that needs to be enforced in this town.
I agree. I would agree.
It's so hard, right?
Yes. Too many, yeah.
Now I got a question.
Yes.
Yeah, we have been asked for an opinion on it, and what I'm hearing is that we have enough ordinances already that will cover that. Is that what I'm hearing?
In the case of the Old Town office, my personal view is with respect to the Belgrade Canoe and Kayak, Sarah, that facility is clearly grandfathered under that ordinance, and so there's no permit for them to violate, if you will. And really, the only question there is, are they in the DOT right of way, operating illegally in the DOT right of way?
Okay, so the Old Town office place, I thought that site, because my husband used to operate from there at one point, and I thought that site where that food truck is a parking lot of that building, isn't it? So the truck is in his own parking lot. I would say. I don't know about the DOT right away, but I thought my idea was that they were parking right. They had the food truck right in the parking lot.
Actually, they're not. They're partially in the grass strip between the parking lot and the roadway, and partially in the parking lot. The shaved ice is actually not in the parking lot at all. And ironically, this is the same area that they sought and obtained a waiver from us not to plant a vegetative screen because there was inadequate space.
Interesting,
to say the least.
All this discussion is very interesting, especially on the other side of things. We we as a planning board can measure applications and measured situations going in town based on the ordinances, and this is not grounded. This is on wheels. All this stuff is on wheels. So it's temporary and it's simply on wheels. So I don't know. We'll have to give some more thought to the whole thing. Maybe certainly the way to go is to do what Pete Surgeon was saying about looking at what other towns have for ordinances on that, and maybe just make it very succinct and brief, not to have 10 pages or 15 pages, 50 of them on one ordinance. So I don't know.
Well, I don't disagree with the idea that at some point, if we are to look at other towns as examples, there's right to not reinvent the wheel. My sensitivity is this planning board spends a lot of time on stuff already. If someone from another volunteer organization wants to go out and find something at the right time, great. Please do not ask us to do that now. That's where I'm coming from. We are loaded. We are loaded to the gills. We've been backloaded. I don't see the bandwidth.
So I find it interesting that the town's always been able to park in that. Townspeople have always been allowed to park in that right of way. And now we're trying to use that right of way to not let people park in it. That's, we've always been allowed. When it was a town office, anybody in the village could park there. But now we're saying, oh, that's a right of way, the main state right of way, we can't park there. I have a problem with that.
Well, it isn't about the customer parking. It's about the fact that you got two commercial uses in the right of way. I mean, we approved that permit to allow them to have their customers park in the same area that the town office customers were parking in. So I don't understand your point, Craig.
Because you're saying those trucks can't be there. And are they ruled commercial? We don't have commercial. They're not ruled commercial.
I disagree.
No more than a farm stand down the road.
Yeah.
You gotta
They're not
start
a
getting
farm
on
stand.
Winterberry Farm. Winterberry Farm, you're gonna start regulating them. I mean, I've seen people pulling in and out of there that's caused, just like you say at the town office. I've seen it coming across Winterberry Farm. That's a hazard area. I mean, you're gonna start regulating Winterberry Farm with their stand right there? That's permanent structure.
Well, I think you have to look at the ordinance and what the ordinance says, though, because there's a specific exemption for farm stands that was put in very specifically. And no, there is no exemption in there for food trucks. I mean, if we wanted to exempt food trucks, then we should amend the ordinance.
Well, all I can tell you is I like the gyros downtown. It's a joke.
Best things ever.
It's a
And
joke, guys.
Anthony's not asking the planning board to have to deal with this. He's just asking your opinion as to how the town moving forward should deal with this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm maybe in the minority here, but my view is that the town, if it wants to deal with this, then we should file a complaint with DOT operations people to see if and find out if those are indeed in the right of way, and the DOT is going to allow them to be in the right of way. And secondly, in the case of the old town office, we should enforce the permit we've already issued and the standard condition of that permit.
Well, you and I both know that they're in the right of way, but if I pull into Christie's and the parking lot's full and I'm parking out by that little curb sidewalk area, I'm in the right of way at Christie's.
Right, exactly.
No,
So,
you park in front of a store, you're in the right of way. Their underground tanks was in the right of way.
Yes.
So
I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe DOT doesn't care.
I don't think they do.
But, I don't think that's our decision. I think that's DOT's decision. We should at least, I'm sure they're like a lot of state agencies where they're not going to do anything unless somebody complains.
So you're gonna single out one thing. I mean, when he just listed several, I mean.
The one down
even in the
to the kayak.
Post
is
office
in
is
the right of
even
way.
in the right of way. The post office is even in the right of way. Both of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, a lot of the businesses in the village are, partially in the right of way.
Belgrade's town office sign is in the right of way.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
And the planning board approved the amendment to the original plan to move it in the right of way. Because we had a letter from DOT saying they didn't have an issue with it.
where was that, Gary?
The town office. Remember the
Sign.
planning board amended the original commercial development review permit because Dennis had the sign moved into the right of way because he felt it was too
Oh,
far
right,
back.
right. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right about that. My major point is I don't think we need an ordinance. I don't think we need to require them to come to the planning board to seek commercial review and approval under commercial development review ordinance, because I think we'd have to deny it. I think we should, in the case of the worst actor here, the old town office, is we need to enforce the permit we've already issued. I
would agree.
I don't know if, nobody cares about them, the other place being in the DOT right away, and so be it. There's probably nothing the town can do.
So, Peter Rushton, I think we have enough information here in tonight's discussion. It'll be captured in the minutes and all that.
Yep.
And we can give it to the select people and see what they think.
Yep, exactly. I agree. Very good.
As far
Alrighty,
as I know, when this was discussed at the select board meeting, I believe there was only one person that questioned it. The others, I don't think, had a big issue, but I didn't listen to it. George, you said you did.
Yeah, no, you're right, Gary. It was just Dan Newman
Yeah.
that was quite concerned about it from a traffic safety perspective at the old town office in particular.
Right.
According to Anthony's memo, I guess other people have either complained to him or the select board or somebody.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until I read his memo. I thought he mentioned Dan, but he didn't mention any of those to me.
Yeah, the roads committee, I guess, is part of it too, and the appeals board.
I'm not sure why the roads committee had an issue, but
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know either. I know no more than what's in that memo.
right. Yeah, so I don't know.
Question, we have a road committee in town?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah.
What's their mission in the statement?
Oh,
So-
they determine which roads should be paved next or repaved next,
Oh, okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Of the town-owned
Roads,
assets, right?
Right.
correct.
All right, so I think we've kind of voiced our opinions about this, and I think there's sufficient information to get back to Anthony about it.
And I will.
All right, thank you, Gary.
You got it.
Hey, before we go to the minutes, I'd like to have a walk-on item, if you folks don't mind. George, talking about the timeline of getting the ordinance to the voters, should we do that, do you think, now?
Sure, whenever you want. I mean, it's up to you.
Let's tackle it now, at least try to make sure we're all kind of on the same page of, if we're going to get this to the voters, what we need to kind of work back from that time frame. So let's do that. So maybe, George, if you don't mind, if I just start off and I'm going to go to my calendar, say, okay.
Yeah, so election day is November 2nd. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have to admit, this is not, an area I have expertise in, but I do know what happened in the last two ordinances that we were in a similar situation, and in both cases, when Mary Vogel worked the timeline out for us, and I suggest we approach her, she do the same for us this time.
Yes.
As town clerk, that, you know, we had to have all our work done, including our approval of the final draft, and to the select board by either their last meeting in August or their first meeting in September. Just because of all the different built-in milestones and timelines, you know, for public notices, public hearings and all that. And, you know, of course, I missed that part of the meeting, our last meeting, when the rest of you met with Charles. And, but I did watch it on YouTube, because I was curious about whether that came up, and Peter raised it, but there wasn't any real substantive discussion. And I'm just concerned that, you know, it's crunch time, and I don't know. Well, among other things, one of the things I'm concerned about is I think it's late enough now that we may not have time to hold a public informational meeting anymore. I think our original timeline called for that to have been done this past month. But anyway, to flesh that out, I think we should ask Mary Vogel to give us a timeline on when do we need to get a draft to the select board for their review, concurrence, and posting to public hearing.
So can we make an official request to the town clerk for that? So is that through Gary, or how do we do that?
Excuse me?
So is it something that, Gary, that you could do, is ask Mary that the planning board is looking for a time to understand?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. What about the solar power ordinance? I mean, we haven't even touched that, and we've already extended it once. So does that mean that's getting free range, or no one wants to deal with it? And I mean, so, because I do want to deal with it, because that solar power unit going up in Farmington's that's a disaster. And so I don't want to see anything like that in Belgrade. And so what's going to be happening with the solar power? You guys seem to be ignoring it. There's nothing been coming up about the solar power ordinance. So I'm kind of curious with that. What's going to happen with that?
Peter, can I just interject for a second?
Go ahead.
I echo Craig's concern. So, yeah, he's right. He's right on.
It is.
Yeah, I certainly would like to deal with that as well. We had decided early on that we would finish our work on the subdivision ordinance first, and then move on to the solar amendments needed in the commercial development review ordinance. Unfortunately, we haven't finished our work on the subdivision ordinance, which we started first and have been working on for over a year now. Your point's well taken, Craig, about the, in both cases, subdivision and solar, as well as commercial wind, the moratorium expires before election day.
Right. Right.
Okay, just to respond to that, maybe we're at a point, planning board's at a point where we could readjust our priorities here. Take a look at put the subdivision in the background, it's a second priority, and move the solar farms up to in the high priority. That's a possibility.
It is a possibility. I for one, I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, and I like that, if we do it, we should remember at the point to bring it to the select people and let them get involved in this kind of priority decision-making. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, I would really be reluctant to leave the subdivision ordinance, seeing how we're 95% complete with it, unfinished and leapfrog to, the next phase of our workload. I mean, the real reason why we're behind schedule is the backlog of permits. That's the reason. It's the reason it took us so long to develop the other two ordinances too, or redo them. And, we've always given that top priority, and I thought everybody was in agreement with that, but maybe not.
No.
So how do we protect ourselves moving forward with the solar? How do we protect ourselves?
Mhm. Is it
Uh,
possible that could be extended another time?
It's already been extended
Twice.
twice.
Well, no, it's been extended once.
Right.
So it's a second one.
Right. I mean, in answer to your question, Craig, how can we protect ourselves? I think one answer, if it's possible, and I don't know if it is, but if it's possible to extend that moratorium again, then I would say I would advocate for that to allow us to complete the work on the subdivision ordinance, then move on to, as quickly as we can, the
solar.
the commercial review to include the solar stuff.
I would agree with that. So Gary, can we ask Anthony if we can get that from a town lawyer, or see if we can extend it again, or how do we get that information to know that if we can extend this one more time?
It was to Gary. Gary,
Yes?
could we just check with Anthony to see if it's even feasible to extend that moratorium one more time?
I don't think you can one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
No, I didn't
don't
think so either. I thought it was a maximum of 12 months.
Yeah.
Right, that's November 5th.
November 5th?
November 5th.
Oh, okay. And so after election day then?
Yep.
I was wrong.
So we'd have to bring that to the voters to extend it again, I would think, correct?
I don't know how that works, Craig. I don't think you can extend it again.
Wait, Craig's asking to have people vote to extend it, not administratively extend it.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can extend it by a vote or not. I'll have to ask.
That's what
Would
we're
you
asking.
please?
I'll ask.
Because what we're doing is we're looking for mechanisms to allow us to do this work so that we don't lose the momentum we've had so far, yet still
I
keep,
understand.
right?
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I just don't have an answer.
I hear you. Okay.
I'll find out though.
Thank you.
Peter, at the last meeting, and I didn't catch anything in listening to the recording, but when is Charles coming back with a final draft that we will vote on?
It's early August, I thought. Could be off by then.
When?
In early August. I'm pretty sure. Does anybody else remember? I don't remember.
I thought we were gonna get it so we can look at it. We haven't even, got a final draft so we can look at it.
Right.
That's
right.
You just
I'm
can't
sorry.
get a draft and vote on it.
Was he going to send us a draft by late July, like the last week in July or something? Do you recall? Because we talked about this.
I don't recall.
I mean, at the last meeting, you guys were working off of the May 26th draft, which was the most current, that he'd made additional changes to, some based on comments I gave him and some of his own, and maybe others like Rich or somebody, but and he had more work to do, all fairly minor stuff. Well, and the appeals board, the big part was the appeals board's reworking of the appeals section.
Yep.
So I got the impression that there's not much left to do.
maybe what I could do, George, is reach out to Charles and ask him when he would send that draft, that finalized draft to us to look at. Because somehow we need to have that in our hands, right? Knowing what the timelines are and milestones. Because we have to, it would be great to be able to accomplish everything that we're talking about and have planned for, right? So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it'd be pretty damn embarrassing, frankly, if we can't get this to the voters in November.
okay. So does the planning board agree that if I reached out to Charles and say, hey, can we get that draft, that final draft? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we learn from Mary what the timeline is, we may have to move when he has to produce that and provide it to us so that we can review it one last time and take a vote on it to move it forward or to shoot it down, whatever we're going to do. And so we can, get off the pot.
Right.
Well, again, I want somebody to look at it other than us, so I plan on having it reviewed, so I need a little time in between. I'm not gonna get it and vote on it, so,
Right. Absolutely
Well,
right.
that raises a good question because one alternative, I mean, if we're not going to have an opportunity for the public, the greater public to, and all the interested parties, not just one interested party, to have provide us with comments on this. Should we, since we can't do that in a meeting format, I'm guessing we can't because we don't have enough time. Should an alternative would be to ask for written comments, the way state agencies do, where we give everybody, all the interested parties that we can identify, whether that's the realtors or developers like Tyler, the Belgrade Business Group, Seven Lakes Alliance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Send them an electronic copy and ask them if they have any comments to submit them in 2 weeks, because I don't want to give special treatment to one party.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We can approve it. We can try to approve it, or at least, approve it within our group, planning board, and place it in the website of the town to have public comments on it been received within 2 weeks or so.
I'm not gonna vote to approve it before that. Because that's putting the horse before the cart. Cart before the horse.
Or both.
So we can do it back. We can do it backwards then. We can put the final draft of it and ask for public opinion on it.
Yes.
So I'm going to write to Charles and see about getting when he could get that to us. Provide him with context that we're trying to work with a timeline, so that we can get this to the voters. I'll get that out tonight. You all will see it, and hopefully we'll be able to get something back relatively quickly, because my recollection, and Craig, you might remember more than I do about this, but it seemed like when we wrapped up with Charles last time, there were some administrative things to attend to. The appeals section was one thing, and including some comments and some minor edits. I don't recall anything that was substantive at this point. And if that were the case, and he said, "Oh yeah, I can have it to you, next week," that could be very helpful, I think, in terms of allowing us more time to review before we had to do something. At the same time, we're trying to get that timeline from Mary so we can understand if we're going to meet something on November 2, working backwards, all the things that we have to do before then. Does that sound reasonable to try to just marry those two things? So a timeline and hopefully get this thing back to us so we can examine it.
Yeah, we got a plan. You got a plan.
Okay.
I agree.
Does that sound good, Craig?
So I have a question. When we get that final plan, I know we've had bullets right along showing the differences. Are we gonna have bullets on the side as well, showing the differences on the old to the new on the final, so everybody can see the difference?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Because if we just throw a document at them, 99% of the people aren't gonna know the difference.
Yeah, no.
It's gonna be the engineers and people that deal with this every day that know the difference, even more so than me. And, you know,
Yeah,
point.
we actually did that ourselves for the last 2 ordinances we worked on.
Kept the markups in the visible so that we could see what they were, you're saying?
yes,
Well,
so we can see the differences of the ordinances and what's changing.
Yeah,
this is a little different though, isn't it? In terms of process, because the old ordinance will be repealed, and this, which is an entirely new ordinance, will take its place if approved by the voters. If not, then, not, but.
Still want to see the differences. I mean,
Yeah,
because
no, I agree, Craig. You're exactly right. But I was just reacting to, an underlined version that shows the changes. I don't think we're going to have that this time because it's essentially a new ordinance, even though parts of it are the same. So I think the burden would be on us or for us to ask Charles to write something up.
well, the commercial ordinance was a new ordinance too. And so I don't see where that's any difference. And we had all the bullets there. And, I think because if you send that to the business group, they're not going to know the difference. I mean, unless they hire somebody to sit down and really dissect it, they're not going to know the difference in what they're voting on. No one is.
Yeah, maybe we're talking the same thing, Craig, because we had put together both for the shoreline zoning and for the commercial development review ordinance, we had put together like a 2-page summary with bulleted highlights of what the ordinance contained and what the changes were from, the prior version. And I'm guessing we're probably both talking about the same document. I'm sorry if I got kind of confused there, but.
Yeah, one of the things that could be helpful is to have like that summary of what's different. I agree that the markup language that remains on a document can show exactly what's different. The only risk with that is that silly things like page numbering and deleting paragraphs offset all kinds of things, and then it becomes a jungle to navigate rather than looking at the substantive changes, right? Well, I don't know. I agree with you 100%, Craig. Knowing what the differences are is wicked important, right? There's no way you can get someone to understand what's changed if you don't tell them, right? It's just how do we make it legible?
Well, and the last 2 times we actually did that and in advance of submitting it to and for the benefit of the select board, because as Craig said, they're not going to, there's a good chance a lot of them aren't going to read it. And secondly, I mean, it's a long document, you know, you can't really expect them to read the whole thing necessarily, and they may not really understand it since they don't work with it, you know, on a periodic basis like we do.
What do you think if I asked Charles to provide a summary of those substantive changes to accompany the final draft document?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I actually did the first drafts of the last two, and I just don't have the time now. I got family in town. I got other things going on. I don't have time for doing that.
Yeah.
Peter, do we have money in the budget to ask Charles, you know, to pay him?
The short answer is yes.
Okay, let's do it.
So I'm just writing this. I'm saying I think it would be in the best interest of all to also include I'm going to call it I'm going to put it in quotes, a one pager. It could be two.
Summarized
Whatever.
document.
Right. To summarize
The changes.
changes made thus far. Then I'm going to say, would you please consider providing that as well? So I'm asking for it.
Tell him we got money there for him. Money's on the table. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Peter, one other suggestion for your consideration would be that we, at that first meeting in August, we put in an agenda item placeholder for this.
Oh, good idea. Gary, can we do that?
Say it again. What do you want?
An agenda placeholder for Charles to come in on the first meeting in August.
Will you have time with Gagny's?
Not really, but we got to go. You know, we've got to get off the pot.
All right, I'll tell Anthony.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, can we have him first? You know, and
Who, Charles?
yes.
Whatever you tell me.
What do you think, Pete?
That's probably wise.
Okay.
I mean, in a perfect world, we would have the final draft that day. We
Yeah.
would have Mary's timeline by then. And we would know if we have enough time to, you know, seek public input.
Yeah, I will get an answer from Mary tomorrow and have her email Peter.
Hey, guys, I'm gonna throw this out there. Why don't we do a meeting on the 29th?
Special meeting?
Why don't we add a meeting on the 29th of July just to take care of this urban subdivision ordinance? And then we probably can wrap up everything there to meet up with the potential timeline that Mrs. Bogle is going to put together.
Well, let me ask the planning board, are you willing to do another meeting for the 29th of July?
I'm not really. No,
What was that, Craig? I'm sorry.
I'm not really that interested. If I have to, I guess, but
I just soon have pay the money to have someone else do it. And that's Charles.
But what I mean is to have an extra meeting so we just can concentrate on that ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, and then in August, and it will be a short meeting, I will say. I wouldn't expect that meeting to be more than half an hour. And then we can, in August 1st, we can do the Gatney and other applications. I don't know, just throwing it out there. don't think that I actually want to do more meetings. Just thinking out loud here.
I'd rather take the half an hour in front of the Gagney permit.
Thanks.
So the 29th, you're saying we just focus for half an hour on that one, on the subdivision, that's it? Or we might go an hour, but if we could just do it an hour, I could, I'd go along with that. I don't want to be running 3-4 hour type meetings.
Yeah, I'm with Peter, or with Pete.
I don't really want to be tied up for another week. That'd be 3 weeks in a row. I'm all good with that.
Yeah, I know.
And we could do it just in front of the Gagney permit and be done with it.
Oh, I thought we're talking about the subdivision ordinance meeting.
Yeah, there's very little to discuss. I mean, we've already been there. We've already beat it to death.
Okay,
It's just a review of it before the Gagney permit. I don't want to be tied up for another week on
okay, yes, you're saying that what Sarah's suggesting that could be done on the normal meeting.
yes.
Oh, I see, okay. I just saying it will take only about a half hour to do it. All right. I see what you're saying.
What else is waiting in the queue for us for the permit backlog?
Not a lot, really. Not a heck of a lot. I probably have 2 or 3 shoreland applications, and do you remember the Lady of the Lakes, whatever it is?
Yeah,
She told me that she wouldn't be ready to come back until August, but I haven't talked to her since.
right.
So we
And the
don't,
shoreline zoning ones, are those ones that have been waiting around for months for us to get to them, or?
one of them is, yes. One of them is.
Yeah.
The other 2 are quite new.
So in all likelihood, we would need to be able to do Gagney, that one shoreland zoning application, and deal with whatever we can deal with on the subdivision ordinance that evening.
Probably. Yeah, you probably could.
Well,
You tell me. I mean,
yeah, well, I guess I'm asking, I mean, we have a certain
we
obligation.
don't have a tremendous backlog right now.
Yeah, but we do have a certain amount of obligation to get to these permits as quickly as we can, even if it isn't as timely as people would like.
Exactly.
Yep.
So go ahead and have a special meeting and do one of those permits.
I just said about meeting the 29th just because of the concern that Peter and George have about presenting this subdivision ordinance in November. And that way we kind of moving ahead of the rope just in case, and reconnecting on the 29th will give us a week ahead, if anything, to overview anything that we will be missing for the sub-ordinance.
You make a good point, Sarah. My thinking is right now, if we get the final draft from Charles in advance, we're going to be spending time already reviewing it before we get to a meeting. And I guess I'll just say I'm concerned about how many meetings we have. We've had some extraordinary efforts put forth by all of you to do these things, and I'm more than concerned about having too many meetings.
Okay, I retreat my suggestion. No worries.
It was a good suggestion, Sarah. It's good to discuss it.
It is very good to discuss it. And I guess the way I'm thinking about it, Sarah, is that the time we'll be spending individually going over the over this before we meet would be equivalent to a meeting anyway. So it's not like we're escaping work, right? There's going to be effort put into this outside of a meeting anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation. So if we can focus on, you know, and I'll put it out there. I think it's going to be a long meeting on the 1st, but we got to try. And I'm going to get this email off to Charles, see about getting it back to us relatively quickly. And also ask for that one pager to summarize the differences so that it could accompany it. So, because we already know this, right? We're showing our hand. We know we have to be able to describe what those differences are to the select board. We know we have to have it ready for a public meeting or hearing or whatever it might be called, or just something, anybody, talk with any of the taxpayers in town. If they have a question, we had this summary document to describe the changes, that would get us a long way there, right? So, does that help?
Yeah, I think it you know, it wasn't, it was a little messy, but I think we're there. And I think at that first meeting in August, you know, we'll have a good sense of whether we have time to circulate, do something regarding seeking public input, or whether that be, or we have to do it by soliciting comments in writing, or we can't do anything and so be it.
Okay. Let's see what we can get back from Charles. I'm sending this off now. My 2 requests. You are all copied on it. Let's see what can happen. All right. So thank you, everybody. Now, there's one other piece of business that we need to attend to, and that is the minutes from July 1. Do people have the minutes from July 1? They're at the end of the package. And Pete, you were not there. so you
Right.
Vote, right?
Yeah, right. And can I just say one thing? I'm not, I'm
Sure.
not, I read it and I'd like to, I kind of was left looking for the second page, a little more discussion on Sean Grant's discussion there. And it's sort of like, is something missing? Something seems to be missing as to, well, what happened? I mean, what was said? Is something more than this, was there a second page to it? So I'm just reading it from a, person who wasn't there and kind of looking at the minutes and, what did I do with that document?
So,
The way Julie crafted this, the memo from the town attorney, Mike Hodgkins, would be part of the minutes, but it wasn't part of the packet. So that would have the guts of that discussion.
Okay.
But I understand what Pete's saying, because I was going to suggest that
I need a summary, just a quick summary statement of what the memo said and what the conclusion was. It's just some kind of.
yeah, so I was going to suggest, I mean, this is my take on the summary. On that second to last line that starts, legal opinion is lots across the street are not part of the application. I was going to suggest we add to that sentence, and 100,000 square feet of lot areas required for residential and for the residential and commercial uses.
so if we added that, George, Pete, would that summarize it for you?
Well, okay, but for the, all right, and that, what's the impact of not having enough? What's the impact of not having enough square footage?
Well, the impact is it doesn't meet the shoreline zoning ordinances.
Good, you need to say that. Yeah, that has to be said. That's all.
Right, so I guess when we get to that, we could add those words if we all agree. Have them
Although,
put in.
you know, I mean, we didn't vote on anything. We didn't vote on a permit application or anything like that, did we?
No, we did not. We just took up the legal opinion.
Right. So, I mean, the ball is sort of in the grants end of the court at this point.
But do we have to make a determination or something to say? Because maybe we do.
Or you could say, you say it presents the square footage, the lack of having the minimum maximum, the minimum amount of square footage that may present a problem for any application going forward, something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
Or do we actually? I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
It's a hurdle for the applicant, and the public needs to kind of know that.
Yeah.
That's all. Something like that,
Yep, that's a good
I'm
point.
gonna have to rewatch the video because I can't put words in there that weren't said that night.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to rewatch the video.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Julie. That was my concern when I asked about not voting, and I don't want to imply that we made a final decision.
Right.
Right.
I'll watch it again.
And thank you, Julie. So, and if we didn't make a final decision, do we need to make a final decision? I think, maybe the answer is yes, so that then the applicants can respond, take some other course of action or something.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm asking, I don't know, does that make sense, planning board members? I mean, what do you think?
Huh. No, you're right, Peter. I'm just trying to remember how it was left. Whether maybe I'm wrong about thinking that the ball was sort of in with the grants to bring it back to us, but maybe it's on us to put it back on the agenda because it was tabled, right?
Yeah, what I remember that was left was that their attorney took everything in, and they were going to come back
Oh, you're right, Sarah. You're right.
for our
They
for our
wanted
opinion.
on.
For our opinion, the attorney talked and gave their opinion, his opinion. Our attorney, the town's attorney, and then Mr. Katz, Honorable Attorney Katz, said that he was going to take all that and come back later to us. That's the way it was left.
That's exactly right. Sarah's exactly right. And actually, we should add that to the minutes because that's a critical point that the applicant's attorney, stated that they would be submitting something in writing to the planning board on their view of the town attorney's opinion.
Okay.
So she should listen to that to get that wording correct.
Yep. I definitely will.
Thank you.
Good point.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Julie. Okay.
It wasn't that long ago, but it seems like months and months ago.
It does. So that was a good discussion, Pete. Thank you for bringing that up. That led to a more revealing thing that we needed to have edited in here, which is good. Do we have other edits for the minutes? I mean, we kind of just jumped into it. Are there other edits that we need to do?
I, of course, left, as it noted, left at 7 p.m. So I really have nothing to say about the rest of it.
Right. and Pete was not there. Craig, do you have anything that we need to edit on this?
Not right now. We're gonna get an updated version, right?
Right, whatever we decide would be the final ones.
So we're gonna have to go over this again, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
Nope.
Yes.
Oh,
I
I see what
think
you're
so.
saying.
So we don't really have a conclusion right at the moment till we see updated minutes.
Okay. Because what you're saying is that the changes are substantive and we need to see what those are before we vote on them?
Yes.
Okay. I'm good with that. Do other planning board members feel the same way? Because if that were the case, we'll just wait for the revisions that Julie may provide.
I'm fine with that.
I would just offer, if there are any other substantive edits right now, let's give them to Julie, so that we can be all one thing. And if there are none others, that's fine too, right?
I don't have anything on that portion of the meeting that I attended.
And Pete, you weren't
I'm
there.
good.
Sarah, you good?
Yes.
Okay. The only thing I have a question about is up in the list of those who are present, I see a Rick and then a question mark. I don't know if that was Ricky Dameron who attended or not. I don't know how to verify that.
Maybe if somebody watched the video, because I think his face was on there, but I don't know what he looks like. And I keep asking for a last name and I don't get one. He might not even look at the chat section, you know?
Right.
But if somebody could look at the video maybe and tell me, because then maybe I can recognize his face in other meetings as well.
Who is that? Who is that you're looking for?
The Rick with a question mark.
Rick?
Yeah, he was at the last one.
Oh, I don't remember.
Right. Yeah, so Gary, I was wondering if it was Ricky Dameron that was there.
I don't remember now.
Okay.
What was the question?
Yeah, the question is, what Rick is this Rick? Listed.
Yeah, but what is this pertaining to? Hold on.
So in
What is
the,
this? Go ahead.
in the minutes, it says it lists who's present, and listed in present is our people, including this guy, Rick. No last name. It just says Rick question mark.
At your planning board meeting.
Yes, the last one on July 1.
It wasn't Ricky Dameron.
No?
I don't recall Rick being at any planning board meetings, to be honest with you.
Okay. All righty. All right, I have no other edits for this. So we will await edits from Julie, and we will take this up again.
And that Rick gentleman's, he's attended a few times, because the first time I didn't even put anything and you requested a question mark. So maybe if somebody wants to just look at the beginning of it when he signed on, look at his face, and maybe they know who he is and let me know.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. All right. Anything else? Any other town business we need to be aware of? Gary, anything?
I just want to make sure I have all this straight. So the question is, for the November 2nd election, what's the timeline for a public hearing prior to that? Is that correct? That's a question you have?
And when
I
do we
would,
need to bring it to the select board?
right.
Oh, to the select board?
Yeah,
Okay. And then, hang on. I'm writing.
Yeah.
we can smell the pencil burning.
Yeah, you can. The next question was, will a vote by the voters extend the solar moratorium? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So I'll ask Anthony that.
Yep.
The next thing is the agenda, 8/5/21. We're gonna have Charles first. Gagny second. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you still want to look at a shoreland application?
Probably not.
I would say,
That's gonna-
right. I
No.
would say not.
Okay, all right, so that's what the agenda will be.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have. I just want to make sure I have these questions aligned, so I ask them properly.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
All righty.
I don't have anything else.
All
So
right.
What's that?
are we meeting in person the next meeting?
Yes, I think we are.
Yes.
And it's gonna be at 6 o'clock versus 7.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's what I guess I think the majority of the board members decided that 6 o'clock probably worked better than 7.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's great.
Does that work for everybody?
yes.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
can work.
Then we get out at 10 instead of 11.
Right.
Then the town won't have to pay you overtime.
Yeah.
Is the town gonna give us supper, sandwiches?
Sure, we'll buy
I
pizza.
thought it was double time.
Double time, yeah.
Yeah.
2 times 0 is still 0.
Yeah.
Right. Right. All
I
right.
think
Anybody
that's
else
all
have
I have,
anything?
Peter.
All right.
Huh?
Thanks, Gary. Anything
Okay,
else?
I will discuss with Anthony tomorrow about your discussion about the snack shacks.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anybody else, anything? Any loose rounds? No? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to close up this meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? George?
Yes.
Everybody's in
Yes.
favor. Sarah, yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you.
Peter, before you leave,
Yes. Yep.
does Anthony have to get in touch with Charles, or are you going to?
I just wrote to him, and hopefully that will
Okay,
prompt something, and I copied you and Anthony and the planning board members.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Julie, I owe you
Good
an
night,
email.
guys.
Julie.
Good night.
Good night.